Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Friday, June 28th, 2024. It's the end of the day. It's the end of the week. It's the end of the month. How better to get together on this than with my two buddies, longtime collaborators, my intelligence community experts, Ray McGovern and Larry Johnson. Thank you, gentlemen. Thanks for your time here. Thanks for all the double duty you do every week. The audience is very appreciative. You know that your numbers are terrific. And this particular show on Friday afternoon has a lot of people waiting for it and draws a substantial crowd. Ray, to you first. Does the attack on the Sevastopol beach, however it happened, change the relationship between Russia and the United States in a meaningful way?
It almost did. In other words, the good sign is that someone told Lloyd Austin, our Secretary of Defense, to call his opposite number, Belousov, and get back in contact where military seniors can talk about what's going on. That's the first time since the Ides of March last year, 15th of March, last time that Shoigu, the Russian defense minister, talked with his opposite number, Lloyd Austin. So that's a ray of hope. It looks like Austin and his military colleagues are thinking, well, do we really want to get into a hostility, an open hostility with Russia? What do they mean when they say that that strike on Sevastopol will not go unanswered? So that's the good news. That's why I say almost. There are other signs that are just cutting in the other direction, indicating that there's a lot of friction, a lot of difference within the U.S. Biden team as well. We have the announcement that U.S. contractors now will be openly sent to Ukraine. That looks like it's going to happen. That will be a problem, even though they don't have the kind of boots on the ground that a uniform is on top of.
So, Larry, when the Foreign Minister Lavrov says to the U.S. ambassador in Moscow, we are no longer at peace. I mean, what is that? Is that diplomat speak for we're at war?
Almost. And let's get some. There's some new detail out about the Austin Belousov phone call.
Please.
The Minister of Defense informed Lloyd Austin, any American drone that comes into the Black Sea is going to be shot down. He said that was issued yesterday, late in the day. That's exactly what Belousov told him.
And this is as a result of what happened last Sunday on the beach.
Yes. You know, we had speculated before the possibility of the Russians imposing a no-fly zone, and I know that there were some out in the punditry community that said, "Oh, they don't think Russia go that far." Well, they went that far yesterday. Belousov issued orders to the military, basically take out the drones. He didn't say shoot them down. He just said we got to stop them from operating in this area.
Suppose an American manned jet is over the Black Sea. Does it get taken down?
Possibly. So the Russians aren't playing. And I think the way it was communicated to Austin was in such a way that he understood, what this dovetails with Lavrov telling, Ambassador Tracy, we're no longer at peace, okay? And then this is followed up. I don't know what motivated Austin. He may have realized that, hey, the United States, we may have some trouble. Maybe they did not deliberately target the beach. But you know what? It doesn't. With that woman in Virginia whose 6-year-old kid went to school, shot the teacher. It didn't matter whether the mother told the kid, hey, go to school and shoot the teacher. She put the gun, a loaded gun, in the kid's hands, and the kid was able to act. The United States put a loaded gun in the hands of the Ukrainians, and they attacked Russian civilians on a beach. That's the bottom line.
So, Ray, how far up the food chain was the decision made to give cluster bombs to the Ukrainians, and who authorized American personnel to download data from the satellite, top secret data, and configure it on the computer so that the cluster bomb would go off over the beach.
Judge, our military takes its orders from our civilians, like Blinken and Sullivan. Those are the people who authorized all this. The ATACMS don't make any sense without surveillance information and from targeting information from U.S. satellites. That's why the Russians made a very big thing of this. Whether that one thing was a mistake or not, the Russians had a choice. They interpreted it as Larry said, rank incompetence, rank brinksmanship. Now, in my view, it's clear that Belousov called, or someone in the Kremlin said, hey, we want to talk to somebody. We don't want to talk to Blinken, for God's sake. Lavrov has finished with him. Let us talk to your defense minister. Would he please call? And as I understand it, Austin called Belousov, and Larry's information is new to me. What's not so new is something I picked up yesterday, and it has to do with two warships declared 1 week ago to the Turkish authorities on their way through the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus toward the Black Sea. Larry, perhaps you've heard about that, but nobody's mentioned that in any
These are American warships or Turkish warships?
American warships. Now, Larry, have you heard about that?
No, I have not.
Yeah. Well, here's Ryabkov talking about what's going to happen. Ryabkov, of course, is a deputy foreign minister, and he's been doing a lot of the spade work for Lavrov. He says, look, there's nothing, absolutely nothing for American warships to be doing near our shores. There's a high risk of unspecified incidents here. We warned the United States, this is a quote, we warned the United States that it would be really better for them to stay away from Crimea and our Black Sea coast, end quote. It would be for their own good, end quote again. Now, unless I'm reading something from 2 years ago, that's big because this happened before. And what I'm referring to is when Biden called up Putin on the 13th of April, 2021, okay? And he said, look, we're worried about all these troop formations in Ukraine. And Putin said, yeah, we're worried about Zelensky talking about open war to get back Crimea and everything else. And besides that, we're worried, Mr. President, about you sending 2 warships into the Black Sea. Don't do it. Biden said, oh, well, I'll talk to my Navy, but, oh, by the way, let's have a summit. Now, that's when the idea of a summit came up. That's the first and only in-person summit that Putin and Biden had, and they had that on June 16th. So that was April 13th. Now, what did Biden do? He called the Navy and said, hey, it would be better to tell those ships to go to Greece and have a nice R&R. The beaches are nicer in Greece than they are on the Black Sea. That's what happened. We're going to have to see what happens this time.
Yeah. Larry, is this American crowd, whether it's Blinken, Austin, Biden, put aside his personal mental deficiencies, do they understand that the Russians don't bluff?
No, absolutely not. And but it does appear that, there's some sort of a dawning realization of how much trouble they're in Ukraine. I don't know if you saw the latest video from our friend Volodymyr Zelensky.
Oh, we did.
The piano.
Let me play it for you now, because he does show lament and regret and sadness and recognizes how degraded his military is. Chris, we have that shot.
We have to find and to prepare this plan and to put this plan on the table during months. We don't have too much time because we have a lot of wounded and dead people on the battlefield and through civilians. That's why we don't want to have this war during years. So that's why we want to prepare this joint plan, put it on the table to the second peace summit.
Put aside that what he's going to put on the table is a non-starter. Is the fact that he's talking like that significant of anything?
Oh, absolutely. We don't have much time. Really? Huh, there's a new tune. And we have a lot of wounded and dead people on the battlefield. Okay, you're finally, instead of pushing out his traditional propaganda, that it's the Russians who got all these dead and wounded on the battlefield, he's admitting they don't. And when you look at the expression on his face, he is a frightened man. He realizes he's in trouble. The clock is ticking. He's got limited time. That's why he said, we don't have much time. He wasn't saying, man, we are beating those Russians. They are on the run. We're doing so well. Things are great, as he has in the past.
Right.
So this was a volte-face, an about turn. And, or I guess as Annalena Baerbock calls it, a 360.
Yeah.
No, 180.
Yeah.
Right.
It's supposed to be 180, but in her mind is a 360. So.
Ray, what is American Intel reporting to their superiors now, whether it goes to Langley and is filtered and spun before it goes to the White House or whether it goes directly to the White House? What are they reporting?
Well, American Intel in the old analysis shop where I work, the political strategic intelligence has been suborned by people, put in by people like Fiona Hill, people like Angela Stent. They were the chief national intelligence officers for the USSR and for Russia, okay? And that's so the people that were recruited then worked for them. What's important here is who does the military analysis. Now, Austin's people have to be telling him, look, if you send those destroyers into the Black Sea, there's going to be trouble. I mean, we can't vouch for what the Russians are going to do anymore. And if you send drones, no matter how sophisticated, if they're unmanned, they're likely to be shut down right now because we have that warning. So they'll tell them that. Now, these people that talk about we will prevail, take Fiona Hill. End of January 2021, Putin is trying to push us out of Europe. He wants to tell us, get out of here and don't let the door hit your behind as you go out. And there's this picture in the New York Times of these 6 cowering U.S. presidents and Putin shutting the door. Okay, now 3 months later, Angela Stent and Fiona Hill find out that the Russians agreed not to go farther. The Russians agreed with the Ukrainians, and we have the chief negotiator for Ukraine admitting this, not to go any farther so long as Ukraine agrees not to be part of NATO, okay? Right. That deal was signed, that was initialed, and what happened, we know. Boris Johnson came in on behalf of the US and the UK and put the kibosh on that. The problem is American people don't know that. Even the New York Times, that has published a whole bunch of stuff on this, has disguised the fact that it wasn't near completion. It was completed until the US and the UK put the kibosh on it.
Larry, how far up the food chain would the decision have been made, A, to authorize American contractors on the ground, armed, in Ukraine, and B, to use cluster bombs toward a beach on a Sunday afternoon in Sevastopol?
Well, with respect to the contractors, the news report is saying that, Biden's got to sign off on this. I view that story with a lot of skepticism because I call it intelligence with a purpose. We've had contractors there for over 2.5 years. They have been CIA contractors. They've been classified under classified status, so they've not been openly disclosed. So I think the reason that the Biden administration is now wanting to openly and issue unclassified contracts to defense contractors is because either there have been or they know that there will be casualties among these people and they won't be able to hide it. So, this is a little bit of political theater because it's not like they're going to be.
Can some general just go out and sign a contract with Blackwater, or does it have to be approved by the Secretary of Defense?
Well, again, they've got to get Biden to sign off on it, saying that it's okay to do it, and then after that point, they'll be able to sign up these contracts through. It'll probably be handled through UCOM.
Okay. Now, how about the cluster bombs on a Sunday afternoon over a beach?
Yeah, that's that's down from. You've got Intel analysts, military analysts who are receiving the satellite and ISR data, the intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance data. They're transmitting that to either the Ukrainians or to other Americans working with the Ukrainians that are inputting that into the guidance systems. Then it's at that point it's the Ukrainian decision to launch. So whether again, it doesn't matter. People try to say, well, the United States didn't necessarily give that order. It does not matter. Just as the mother that allowed her 6-year-old son to go to school with a loaded handgun.
Right.
That, it didn't matter whether she told him to do it or not. She allowed it to happen. We're allowing this to happen.
Well, I would argue that it's more than allowing, Larry, because of the necessity for an American with a top secret security clearance to download codes from a satellite.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it's even a step beyond negligence. This is active complicity. We are accessories to a crime.
I think.
Go ahead, Ray.
Yeah, I think we need to step back here and put this in context. When that terrible incident at that concert happened a couple of months ago, the Russians threatened retaliation, and the head of Russian intelligence accused the U.S. of being involved with the Ukrainians. Okay, now what happened? There was retaliation in the form of bigger bombs and louder bombs and more bombs in Ukraine. Ukraine is where the Russians have the upper hand. And now we talked about these 2,000-pound bombs going to Israel, right? Well, would you believe 6,000 3-ton bombs going to Ukraine, like down on Ukraine? That's what's happening now. And their energy system, their electrical supply system is being decimated. It looks like maybe 60, 70% so far. So this kind of retaliation is what the Russians prefer. And as things go along here with the attrition, the Russians are welcoming Ukrainian troops to fight against and decimate. And the Russians are, to my mind, suffering very few casualties. They're prepared to wait this out. They have the option of going farther, but there's no point in a big arrow offensive right now. Wait until Biden either doesn't run or they see who else is coming. They'll make that calculation when it's necessary.
Chris, play cut number 10, and then right after it, cut number 11. This is the Russian ambassador to the UN condemning what happened on Sevastopol and stating affirmatively and clearly, we know the involvement of the Americans. 10 and then 11.
Kiev regime, supported by the USA, and carried out a heinous attack against civilians in the Russian city of Sevastopol in Crimea. Ukraine launched 5 US-supplied ATACMS missiles armed with cluster munitions. An American Global Hawk UAV was patrolling the airspace over the Crimean Peninsula. There will be measures in response. The Russian Federation will continue to protect its people and its national security until no threat is posed by the neo-Nazi regime in Kiev that was breeded, raised and financed by the West. Recent actions by the West when they permitted Kiev to attack targets inside the Russian territory, their missions, their personnel, including military personnel, that is helping in directing Ukrainians in operating their weapon systems that they supply. These are steps that definitely lead to the escalation. We do not deliberately target any civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. Only that infrastructure that relates to the military-industrial complex of Ukraine. We do not bomb cities. We do not bomb civilians. So that's it. We are not doing what Israel is doing in Gaza.
Sounds like the Russians know exactly what's going on. The FSB knows exactly where the American drones were and when they were activated and what drones were used and how they downloaded data from the satellite. So anybody, like Larry's analogy with the woman giving the gun to her child, anybody that seriously claims the United States is not responsible for what happened on the beach in Sevastopol is grossly negligent in their understanding of what happened. Correct me if I'm wrong.
The response by the U.S. by a major Charlie Dietz from the Pentagon, that we're not responsible for targeting these things. The Ukrainians do this all by themselves. Well, that was so outlandish, so outlandish that I think required this overture to Defense Secretary Austin. Look, we need to talk to you, not some major who's saying things that aren't really believable. Now, on the other side, the diplomatic side, Lavrov was asked a day before this, well, what about these backdoor negotiations that are going on, that Cy Hirsch says are going on underneath? He says there aren't any. There are no contacts at all. A day later, Austin gets a call. Well, let's have contacts. So the good news is the contacts. The bad news is a lot of guys in Washington who just as soon push up until we're involved in some kind of armed conflict with Russia.